for documentary and ethnographic media at CU Boulder. And welcome to the Masterclass with the festival's featured artist, Pedro Costa, who joins us from somewhere. So if you're here, Costa probably does not need an introduction. He's one of the most important filmmakers working today. He's made numerous films, many with the same community of people from Cape Verde, as in the film we saw a couple of days ago, Vitalina Varela. The masterclass revolves around a different kind of film, Costa's film, Where Does Your Hidden Smile Lie?, which was recently restored. The film is a documentary about the editing of the film Sicilia by Jean-Marie Straub and Danièle Huillet, and it features Straub and Huillet. I'll just say that about this film, Where Does Your Hidden Smile Lie? Jean-Luc Godard called it the best film ever made about film editing. So with that introduction, I think I will turn it over to Pedro. There we go. I think we can hear you now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, this designation, Masterclass, is always, of course, very, very extravagant, I think, and a little bit dubious. But what I proposed was a little bit to talk about the most cinephile of my films, the one that deals most with cinema, or the one that even sets a kind of theorization of practice of filmmaking. That's why I chose it. It's a feature, as you said. Let's call it a documentary about Jean-Marie Straub and Danièle Huillet, so two filmmakers that I hope you know. If you don't, I urge you to see their films. I think you can in the US. You have now several DVDs and even Blu-rays that are beginning to be available, and in new masters and new copies, new restorations. And just to tell you briefly that this couple of filmmakers in work and in life were in my adolescence, in my teen years, were with Jean-Luc Godard the filmmakers that most left a big impression on me. I grew up seeing all kinds of films, not choosing just, I was never a cinephile, and I just saw everything in my neighborhood, in my city, Lisbon, the films of the 70s mainly, sometimes a American Western from the past, or a French or Italian film from the 50s or even 40s. And then slowly I began coming towards something, a vague desire for to discover some more things about film. It seemed an art with a lot of potential, I have to tell you that in 1974 I was 12, and there was something very important in my country, a revolution. Uh, Really a revolution. Everything changed from one day to the other. It was we used to live in a very uh, well sort of dictatorship, um, and right fascist dictatorship. And from that night of 25th of April, everything changed, and we started living. We spent 3-4 years in a very very chaotic um, agitation in the streets, a sort of with every week a coup and a counter coup, uh, two military factions against one another, and and that was my adolescence. I learned about politics. I can even say I chose very quickly one side of, let's say, of the road, of the tracks. Was very clear to me until today. And that meant too a sort of choosing your films, your music, your books, everything very fast, very intensely, very passionately. I was really lucky, and to have been uh, formed and to learn and to love at this particular time, because it seems now to easier it was easier to love something at that time. It was very black and white, black or white. 74, 75, 76 were very very intense years. 77, as you probably know, some of you, there was something important also to me because I played a little guitar, so there was the punk rock movement. That came really in a special moment too, because um, it helped. It helped to. mm, It was another companion to my poetic, let's say, uh, desires. I then thought I would love to know or like to know how the film was made. Um, it seemed a useful way of doing things at that moment. Um, I was more into grabbing a camera than writing poems or books or painting. And by chance, I went into film school, and, and a technical film school mostly. And well, I'm telling you this because in these years, the 70s at least, um, these were the years that, at least it's my memory, that Jean-Marie Straub and Danièle Huillet and Jean-Luc Godard, with some minor satellites, um, were um, were the main forces, were the instigators of a lot of things, and they shot very quickly and a lot. Um, Godard was making one or two films a year. Straub at least one a year. So we had always this this these surprises for me, and I told it a lot of times. Straub, uh, maybe even more than Jean-Luc Godard, was. Uh, there was something in their films that related for me, and you might find this very strange, to those punk bands that I really loved and I used to hear every day. Wire, Sex Pistols, The Clash, etc., etc. It was the same rage, the same tone, the same kind of production, uh, small, economic, concentrated, the same speed, even. Always saw Danièle and Jean-Marie Straub as very, very, very fast filmmakers. But I also always saw Ozu as very fast, so I don't know. Excuse me, or try to watch them again, and you'll see. I mean, in the sense that it's very, very difficult to just apprehend and see everything that is taking place in a shot by Ozu or Straub. With Godard, it's easier. I mean, it's in a sense because it's all about the speed of life and the contemporary times, and you have the impression that you're always seeing the present, the rough and tough present. With Straub or Ozu, there's a sense of history, of memory, of even of feeling. People are experiencing things at that moment, and it seems slow, but if you watch closely, there's lots of things happening at the same time in those shots. Straub, you have also a very, very unique thing. Well, unique. For me, they were the last great filmmakers of landscape. Of really, they could shoot and film a landscape without the help of anything else but cinema, because most of the times filmmakers take landscape, take our natural world as it's a little bit decorative. It's a little bit always an illustration of something, usually something sentimental or romantic, and sometimes it comes with music, usually with classical music. Never understood or never knew why landscape is so related to, I don't know, Bach or Mozart, Monteverdi, and not to, I don't know, Elton John. I don't like Elton John, but could be. It's a mystery. But so this was the melting pot, or the thing that formed me. Politics, fast music, these two forces of cinema, a lot of very, very classical film, American 40s, 50s, Italian, French. So very contradictory things, because there's not more revolutionary than Straub and Godard, and not more reactionary than John Ford or I don't know, Howell Walsh. So, but seeing them side by side at the same time during those years, it maybe turned John Ford into kind of revolution to me, and Straub and Godard like a confirmation of John Ford. Sometimes, most of the times. So I made some films and myself, and in 2000, the year 2000, I had, well, a little bit before, around 1997, I had a little, well, not a little, a big existential crisis, I think. Um, and that was very, very much related not to my sentimental or personal life, private, but to my uh, filmmaking professional life, because the films I made, I tried to make, were um, done in a very conventional way, um, production wise, and you know, I did everything one does, and I couldn't. I, I was trying to find my way, my voice, like everybody else. I was trying to find what I wanted to do and the way I wanted to do, but I was very unhappy, and it was something that wasn't quite right. And I didn't know exactly what. I had an impression, a feeling that it was on the side of art, or on the side of directing actors or framing, or I mean the artistic side of things. And I decided to wait a little bit, to think a little bit, try to find out what I missed, how can I do it, how could I do it a little bit better for me, for my own satisfaction. And this coincided, this moment of reflection coincided with this film I did in Cabo Verde, the first one I did in Cabo Verde, which are 10 islands in the Atlantic Ocean facing Senegal, more or less. I went there to do a film. Very stupid idea. It was a remake of a horror film called I Walked with a Zombie. That was in '94, and well, stupid. It's an idea like could be something else, but in this case, I wanted to film a volcano and a tropical island, and some very strange spells and women that are not feeling very well, and all that came from not only I Walk with a Zombie, which is a Jacques Tourneur film, but from many other classic uh, fantasy horror, especially American films. But um, the end of that shooting in Cabo Verde was very uh, something happened. And what happened was that people there we became friends with people in the village, and and coming back after I don't know 2 months of shooting, they gave me and a few other members of the crew um, lots of things for us to bring back to their relatives uh, that were that lived in Lisbon. The Cape Verdean people is uh, they are I don't know 90% they are immigrants. Um, the Cape Verdean Islands are dry and very tough, volcanic. There's nothing. There's very very small little agriculture. There's no industry. The only job is building roads, and now a little bit of tourism, hotels and cruises and things like that. So they gave me this presents, this bag of letters, postcards, and I had to find out the place where they were in Lisbon, and I went there and I it was a very tough neighborhood, a very suburban, strange ghetto African. By chance, I learned Creole to shoot in Cabo Verde. So I spoke a little bit Creole, more or less. And it must have been very strange for them to see a guy like me with the bag speaking Creole walking in. That was easy. It was easier, I think. So I went in, I stayed, I gave those letters and presents. And for me, this is a little bit, this was for me without knowing. I didn't know yet, but it was my salvation, more or less. It was something that replaced me, centered me completely, because that's what I needed. And I think that's what a filmmaker or anyone, but if you work in cinema or something, you need a kind of center from where you can look at things. And I always say that I don't have the conviction that I think all my heroes have. Maybe not Godard. I don't know. But certainly all the John Fords and Carl Dreyers and Straub. Political conviction, religious, whatever. It's a sort of center, a sort of force that helps you make the films and make them with some, tension. I don't have that. I still don't. It's difficult for me to believe in the collective. It's a shame, but that's how it is. But at least finding this neighborhood, these people, and this community that was a little bit broken helped me a lot. Trying to go on with films, trying maybe finding some more interesting things to shoot, to see, and I'm telling you this because because it explains a little bit, I think, all of this explains my situation at that time. I was more sure about myself. I was more alone. I was more in a position of not alone but lonely. More. I was more kind of reporter or painter or photographer than a filmmaker. I decided to buy a video camera, small DV video camera. At that time was mini tapes. They were cheap. They were the first. Maybe you remember that time. Everybody talked about the democracy of doing of film. Everybody could make films with the small camcorders, etc. Everything gone, everything forgotten now, I think. The cameras are becoming bigger and bigger again. Anyway, I was doing film in another way. I found a place and people and subjects even that were interesting for me, and I decided to stay there a little bit. So I did. Well, I've been doing films there forever, since that moment, 96. And just in middle or end of doing my first film there called In Wander's Room, I got this phone call or this um, an invitation from France, from a lady, Janine Bazin. She was the, well, she died now, but she was the wife, the widow of André Bazin. And, and Janine and André Labarthe, a filmmaker and a critic from the Cahiers du Cinéma, they invited me. They asked me if I wanted to do a film about Jean-Marie Straub and Danièle Huillet for this series, this collection of films that they had invented for TV, French TV, called Filmmakers of Our Time, Cinéastes de Notre Temps, which was very, that's something that started in the 60s, I think. There's lots of films. The idea is a younger filmmaker does a portrait of an older filmmaker, a filmmaker that he loves, that he admires. And there's, I think, probably you know lots of them. There's a very nice one made by Labarthe about Cassavetes. There's the first one is Jean Renoir, interviewed and filmed by Jean Stache. And there's dozens lately. There's, I don't know, from Cronenberg to Chabrol and Godard and Dreyer. I think almost the big guys are all there. And they had tried for a few times to do a film about Jean-Marie and Danièle without succeeding, because you probably have heard that Jean-Marie and Danièle have this fame, they always were very famous for their stubbornness. They're very, very strong people and very, they don't compromise with everything. So, of course, I said yes, I think immediately. I was very afraid, but I said yes. I had no idea how to do it. I have to tell you that all these films that I'm telling you about, the series, it's always wonderful to see people you admire and that you love, and some, that help you also make films. But I have to say, some of them are not very interesting, the films. It's just interviews with the filmmakers, and then an excerpt of one film, and then another little interview, and then another excerpt, and then those pathetic moments of the filmmakers walking around in some woods or taking the subway, or it's always the same thing. So I was very afraid also, not because of Danièle and not because of them. I didn't know them that well yet. But I was simply afraid of what can I do? What shall I do? How can this be a film, not only a TV product or something like that, but a film, a nice, interesting film. And I would almost say a fiction film, because I'm so always, sorry to say in this festival, but I'm always try to go beyond documentary. I think it's useful. I think documentary has everything to gain from being a little bit fictional, in a good sense. Nothing to do with lying or manipulation. Nothing like that. It's just mm, well, I don't know, narration. I think narration is always nice. So I went, talked with Jean-Marc and Danièle at their place. Uh, I remember Danièle immediately said, "No way, no, no." And Jean-Marie said, "Yes, maybe, maybe." So I just said, "Okay, what are you doing now next month?" And they said, "We're going to do the editing of our new film, Sicilia, in France for for a month in a school, they film school. They give us the editing facilities, and we in exchange they give us that for free, and in exchange we do some workshops about editing and filmmaking." So I just waited a little bit, a few weeks, and then I called them again, or I called Jean-Marie, and he said, "Okay, but okay, Danièle is a little bit more calm. You can do it, but you must. I must tell you immediately that there's no secret in the things we do. There's nothing to. There's no secret. There's only work." And this was great because, well, I didn't expect any secrets or any magic, but this was great because I it gave me the courage, let's say, to ask him immediately, "Can I come and shoot the editing?" And he said, "I have to ask Danièle because she's the one. She's the real worker. I'm just a bum behind her and making my clownish things. But she's very concentrated, and she needs. And later, a little bit later, I don't know why. I think I know why. That movie I told you in Vanda's room that I was doing at the same time, more or less. I was doing it alone with my small camera, the mini DV thing. And when I finished it, the film came out in Paris. It was released in Paris briefly. It's a 3-hour film, a bit difficult about young junkies in Lisbon, that neighborhood. And by chance, a very important filmmaker, a man that I love, the best writer of film ever for me, in my opinion, Jacques Rivette, one of the 4 or 5 from the Nouvelle Vague. He saw the film. He went to a theater in Paris and he saw the film, and he liked it. And he even wrote me a postcard. He was a man. He saw lots of films. He saw 4 films a week till the day he died. He was a true lover of film. And sometimes he wrote the filmmakers or wrote postcards or messages. And he wrote me a postcard saying that he had liked the film and he found some interesting things in the form and etc. I think that helped me because they were very close to Straub and Danièle. They were very close to Rivette. They were friends, and more than with Jean-Luc Godard, they were friends with Rivette. And Rivette told them about this film and about me and about this way of making films, making the film with a very small camera. So I think Danièle said, "Okay, you can bring your small camera, no lights, no equipment, do not disturb me. course, you can bring your sound, you can record, you should record the sound, but okay, that's all. So I came and I started, and I came with a friend who did the sound. I had my small camera again. I was alone. Invited this French sound engineer. He had his mic with his recorder on his chest, always standing from 10 to 7. And we were in this small dark room in this school where they had this editing machine, this steam back editing table, and they did the editing of their film. And I had this idea that it could be interesting if we had a bit of luck, and I could perhaps find some ways, in a way, fulfilling the command. I mean, what they had asked me. I mean, a film where you could understand and learn a little bit about these filmmakers, the filmmaker in question. If possible, learn a little bit about how to make a film, what's making a film, etc. And on the other side, that's for me. The other side would be making a completely fanatic film. And I could see that in the editing. I could feel like I was close to them. I was in a sort of very private, intimate moment. I could see some things that no one saw, their fights and their reconciliations and their. I mean, I could see life happening. It was not just an interview or not just. How do you something, or what was it like something else? I mean, all the questions that I had, I didn't need to express them. They were there, resolved, answered through the work. They were editing, so cutting and finding and not finding and their film. So it was a concentration, very explosive concentration of their work, since the first till the last film. So yeah, so I stayed for the whole moment, 1 month, 10 to 6 every day except weekends. And I think I've been talking for a long time now. I don't know if you hear me well, if this makes sense, interesting, can I go on, etc.
We can definitely hear you, and it's definitely making sense. I don't know if you want to pause for
No,
responses or just continue on.
no. I was just no, because the silence is frightening. No, it's no. I can tell you that it was a sort of well, it's very lucky. It's almost a miracle to have this chance of doing my film while another filmmaker is editing their film. I mean, it takes a lot of generosity, of course. I don't know if I could do it. It takes a lot of generosity and concentration, really, because Danièle, who was working, I don't know if you maybe some of you have seen the film, so you've seen the way she is. I mean, even the form of her shoulders, herself with the machine is, she's one with the machine. She's right there with every millimeter of centimeter of the frame, trying to see. Really, that's one of the things. That's her leitmotif. That's what she says three or four times in the film. You just have to see, or watch. That's what she says, and it reminded me a lot. The way of working, it reminded me a lot of one of the most simple and strongest formulas that they had in interviews and Q&As, which was to make a film. First, you have to see and hear well, and that's what you have to do. It's not sending a political message or a sentimental feeling or a sentimental atmosphere or an historical thing. It's what you have to do is to teach people to hear and see better, if possible, with the film. And I remember that, and that was exactly what they were putting in practice while editing. The best way to see things, the finest way to hear things, to hear nature, to see people, humanity, and through this practice, a lot of things came for me. It was very obvious. I remembered a lot of things from the silent days. David Griffith used to say the same thing. Hear, see. That's our task. That's our main goal. Our work is to make you see the wind in the trees. Those kind of things that they said. That seems so simple, but they're not. They're really difficult because it involves you completely. I mean, it involves your being. It involves you have to be very strong to involve other people in this. I mean, actors, technicians. Every day, not only they were doing their job, they had to edit the film in 1 month, but they were giving me the best. They were generous, every day a bit more generous, in the sense that they were sharing even secrets, or almost secrets. I mean, in the end, the last 10 minutes of the film, of my film, it's just about their life, about their marriage, about how they met, how they were meant for each other, how they kept going, how it was a very beautiful. In the end, Danièle says something very beautiful. So, how can a couple stand each other for more than 40 years through this work, through all these dreams and sacrifices? Because you have to understand that these are no, should I say it? These are no Spielbergs. These are not people that succeeded, because everybody starts. It's an Herzog film, I think. Even the dwarfs start small. Everybody starts small, I think, more or less. I mean, we all do a short or a documentary, a small film, no money. Then we do a second and third, etc. And then things happen, and you make choices, or people make choices for you, and you decide to compromise, or you decide that you need some things, or this and that, and you succeed in a sense. When you go away, you choose a path, and it's I'm not yeah, I'm criticizing, but I'm not saying it's you shouldn't do it. But I mean, it is what it is. There are family or filmmakers that exaggerates in every sense, and there are other filmmakers that think that have a feeling or have a conviction that film should be closer to the making of films, should be closer to a sense of there's some, I don't know how to put this, but 90% of humanity is in need of things, money, food, I don't know, lots of things, justice. So 90% of filmmaking is not on that side. Let's say it like this. So the need to go big, to be extravagant, to show it big and make it big, and to even go to the side of inflation. When you need a lot of money to make a film, the things inside your film also need other big things. You need stars, you need planes, explosions, and planets, and more stars, and more money, etc., etc. It's a never-ending. It's inflation. It's what everybody knows. So Jean-Marie and Danièle choose the opposite way. If you see this film, if you will understand that every scene, every shot, they try to connect with another shot. What they do is trying to get to not only to the bone, like we say, but to be the more economical, the more concentrated, the more simple that they can, and trying to avoid every kind of effect, every kind of trick. They speak about that. But anyway, when they are editing, it's almost the end of a process that started with the idea, like Jean-Marie says, an idea, a project, a dream, in their case, a text, always. Usually a text that belongs to everybody. Novel by Kafka, or a musical text by Bach, like The Art of Fugue, or all their films are based on texts, musical, literary, sometimes political texts by political thinkers, or by Brecht, not the dramatic work, but some literary things or adaptations from Greek tragedies, sometimes more contemporary novels by Italian writers. The last films were let's call them adaptations of Pavese and Vittorini, two writers from the 20th century, Italian, very connected to the resistance, to the Nazis first, and it was to a resistance, a daily resistance. Both of them members of the Italian Communist Party, and both of them very unhappy with the idea of communism in Italy and in the world. Very so unhappy that Pavese killed himself. Maybe that was one of the reasons. I don't know. The other one was he also was very much in love with an American film star. It's strange, but that's the truth. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any questions or comments? Or would be nice.
Maybe I'll stand up here. I have questions, but why don't we start with you guys? How about back here?
I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your observation of their specific patterns. I avoid the word technique, but you're filming them and they're making choices. And so I wondered what kind of little patterns that you saw forming or coming up as you were filming them.
Well, I know it's a little bit precise, but at the same time, patterns is a bit vague too. I think I go back to that Jean-Marie observation. There's no secret to our work, to our, if you want, art. Everything we find through a lot of work. It's lots of days and nights and, of constant observation. In this case, just concentrating on the editing. There's something for me, very beautiful, because I'm now, and that's maybe a pattern, maybe, and the most important one, maybe, I don't know. And it relates to my own work now, and every film I make now, more and more, I'm sure this will happen in every editing moment. It's that for them, what I saw with what I shot in that month and that editing room was not really, as I expected, a formal work, kind of course there's super attention to form, but a very, very, it's very broad. It's very, I think you need a lot of experience and a lot of life even, and a lot of difficulties to be so at ease with this life of form, to be so, not desperate, to not have that certain sadness, or like a lot of filmmakers and artists have, sadness or melancholia. Melancholia is something very, 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 I wouldn't say far removed from their lives, but it's something they resist a lot, We're not sad. This is not melancholic. Our work is, if some sadness or melancholy appears, maybe we failed somewhere. There was a little bit a sense of that, and there's this energy, this communion there are people that like a lot being on the open air. Let's say their films are very, very about the air that we breathe, the particles of light. They're always talking about that, the light, the rays of light, the dust in the air, the rivers, the mountains. It's a very, it's the most ecological cinema. Straub and Huillet, and not only ecological in the sense that you see the beauty of our world and what beauty it is. And I mean that there's no comparison from nature and cinema. It's I mean it's but also the way you make films, you know, that you have to be ecological in making the films, in the sense that you shouldn't spoil things. You shouldn't again, the money side of cinema is very brutal. The sort of ethics. Making a film should be a decent experience, decent for everybody. I mean, for the crew and then for the people who see the film. But that pattern that I was trying to identify, I think the most clear or the most obvious for me was that they spend so much time in every film. It's always the same, except for one or two films maybe, but they spend so much time and so rich time, so knowing someone, trying to make them say something, text, to teach them or make them acquainted with a text, with this text. I mean, being music, being novels, being poetry or whatever. They spend a year or more sitting at the table with, you know, usually, sometimes, most of the times, with non-actors, non-professional actors. So people that don't know, I mean, people that don't really know how to start, how to engage, how to act. And sometimes people that don't really even have any relation to cinema or theater or music or literature. I mean, they're in Sicilia in this film. There's bricklayers. The main character, the main actor, is a mason. The woman, the mother, she works in a pharmacy. She used to. She's now retired. She was a cashier in a pharmacy. So, working with these people, I think I felt it was their main joy, almost. Sharing this text, sharing this experience, sharing cinema with these people that didn't know anything about this was their main joy. And in the editing, I think more than, you know, we're very used to think about editing as kind of magical and strange, mysterious, almost abstract, and moment. It's the most relaxing moment of filmmaking. Everybody knows that. And it's the most, at the sense, the one that can make appear this unsuspected and surprising, almost fireworks of form. And you know, you glue together two shots and you never thought about the relation that is going to be born from these two very different things. There's a very exhilarating and work, this there's always a kind of anxiety, but also excitement in filmmaking, in editing, because you're hoping that your shots will finally all glue together, will finally make this kind of apotheotic formal object almost. Well, for me, and that's what I saw in this editing of theirs, now it's something else. It's about the actors. It's about the performance of the actors. It's about their work. Like Straub and Huillet, I also do many takes, because I also work with non-actors, and so people that need time. They need time because they didn't have time in their lives, Not, they never had time for anything. I mean, these people they have difficult lives. They were immigrants, people I work with. They had to find ways to survive even. So this moment now of making a film altogether is, if you rush, if you don't give them the chance to understand what they're doing and try to go a little bit further and etc., you shouldn't. It would be really stupid to do it. So I try to give them the most precious thing, which is time, and for cinema too, because time has become an enemy of cinema, and time should be it's a friend. It's a friend. It should be a friend in life and should be a friend in cinema. So we have time, and we do a lot of takes, to learn, to understand, to be better, of course, to correct, sometimes just to repeat, to be in a certain mechanics, that from that routine maybe some sparkle, something will be born. Charlie Chaplin was a lot like this. He did hundreds of takes just to find a small variation. And in the editing, forced the Straubs, and now for myself too, what's most important is the recognition that the actors, they worked so much that we end up with, not only one or two or three, but 20 amazing takes of a shot. And for me now, and that's what I saw in that editing room, and you can confirm it if you see the film, I still think it's the most important for them. It's the work they did together with those actors. It's the word, it's the way they expressed those beautiful words, those important texts. And that's the reason why they do versions of their films. They do sometimes 3 versions of one film. I mean, they have the French version, and that would be a film in French with a French producer, and that would be the first takes, the first chosen takes of that would be the French, and then they have the second best take, and that can go to the Italian version of the film. Italian in the sense that normally they have a co-producer Italian, and then a third that could be generally German. So they can give. We're talking about film 35 millimeter. So was that moment that you had negatives still, so you could offer 3 different negatives. You have 3 different versions of your film. slightly different because every take is different. So, and this was a way of giving a different film for each producer, and at the same time um, they have more negatives. It's better. It's not only one negative that you can destroy more quickly, but that, I would say, the thing that excited them most, they're really the work they wanted to do was the actors, the work of uh, the performance of the actor, more than anything else, let's say. Even if we know absolutely that Straub, Huillet, and every great filmmaker, the best filmmakers are, I mean, there's nothing, everything is a whole, everything is together, and you cannot separate. But let's say if the work, if the actor is there, if the actor is living his text, living his text, yes, everything else will be in tune with that, I think. Sorry, too long.
It's okay. I would like to ask you about how you work with actors, because there must be a time when you're working, times when you're working with people who have never even once participated in a film. And then, as in Vidalina Varela, you have some people that you've worked with before. And I'm wondering how that might be the same or different, or how your process might be the same or different.
Well, I don't know if it's that different for the people I work with. Like I was telling you, for the people that work with Straub, or in general non-actors, it's in general people that have no connection to this artistic things. There's people that don't usually go to museums or read or see masterworks of French cinema or whatever. I don't know. I'm a bit used to this, or to some principles. It's not a method. I was going to call it a method, but it's also a little bit irrational and very responsible. So I cannot call it a method, but there are some guidelines, some principles, and the first one being time. Like I told you, I need to. My biggest mistake, maybe in my first films and the way I was thinking about film, was that old. I was completely in that economic state of mind that is a little bit a lie, that says that film is a luxury, film is very expensive, film is something that only, or very rich or special or talented or advanced technologically, or something that only these people can do. And it's made in a very magical, special planet. Talking about the very commercial cinema. I mean, the American films that are completely dominant in the world. It's what what they say, what is on TV screens in those places, in those neighborhoods. It's constantly running. So it's something I think in the beginning when I started working in that place and with those people, I had the feeling that they didn't even think that those kind of things were made. You know, how can you make, these things, Brad Pitt running and an explosion and monkeys and I don't know, planets colliding, and how can you make that? I mean, you don't make them; they just happen. You're not, you don't think about those things. If you need a passport in 2 weeks and you need to feed 3 sons and a daughter, and the police is chasing you, and there's lots of rats running in the living room, and you just don't think about how do they make those films. Or so one of the I always say this because one of the things that I always had to do at the same time as I was doing the film, my film, the shooting, was telling them verbally. I mean, I had to tell them calmly that my film was also a film. Maybe not so extravagant as the apes and the planet of them, but it was also a film. It was, and not only that, but that they could be in this film. That cinema could be a way of talking about their lives and their place. That we can do it all together, and maybe most of all, that maybe film cinema began there on the street in the corner with a dog, with a tramp, with in a bar with a few coins and a policeman, of course, and with the small things. So going back to the beginning of film, I always thought that I needed to have these two jobs at the same time, doing the best film we could, or that I can, and telling them it's possible, it's interesting, let's do it. It was like that 8 years ago, and it could still be like that, and even more now because our films are a little bit seen, and they are a little bit seen in Japan or there, or a little bit. So now they believe in that. They believe that it's an interesting, strange work. Um, they also know now, and they didn't, that it's very, very hard work. It's very physical. It's very mental. It's very tiring, and it can be so serious a job as building a house, or that's what they know, or cleaning a house. Actually, it has a lot to do with houses for me, and it's a very beautiful and simple metaphorical way of joining the two together, because they are, most of the people I work, men, they are builders, they are masons, bricklayers, etc. Women, they are cleaning ladies. So one builds, the other cleans. It's houses, it's roofs, it's windows, doors, it's entering, getting out, leaving the house, closing the window. It's about repetition. It's about um, the comfort of home. Cinema has a lot to do with that. Uh, uh, Imagination, um, family, etc., etc. So So it's a little bit like this, you know. We work a lot, and I take a lot because we take our time. We never give up. We don't have producers that. I mean, I'm not obliged to go anywhere quickly, or so I can. I start a film now. In general, I don't have producers that force me. Well, I don't have producers, so I'm my own producer. So I'm irrationally responsible enough to let myself work as the. I mean, and I thought that I should give cinema. I should allow filmmaking. Should allow this irrationality because it's at the core of film. It's not really unconscious. It's the irrational. And being my own producer, I can be generous enough to offer me the irrationality that I have as a director, something like that.
So, are there other questions? How about here?
I'll try. You got it?
Hi, I was just thought we could talk a little more about editing. And I'm thinking about something that the great editor Anne V. Coates once said. She said, don't cut until you have to, meaning that you want to hold the moment and sort of honor the moment that you're putting in your film. And when I saw Vitalina Varela, that definitely had that feeling for me. Is that an approach that you use when you're in the editing room, kind of trying to honor that moment that you captured?
Mm-hmm. Surely, it's a very yes, it's a nice way of putting things. The moment. I was. I don't know if it has something to do with this, but now because we do this long shootings, a year, let's say, Vitalina Varela was more or less 1 year. I didn't shoot every day, but I was there every day. The crew was there every day. We prepared, rehearsed, recorded, etc. When we did not shoot, we had other stuff to do always. But it's a year of work, and and now sometimes something happens, and I like this way of working. Sometimes we do a scene, and the scene can be a shot, can be contained in just one shot or several. But let's say a scene, and sometimes I'm not convinced or happy, or it could even be the actor. Sometimes Tura, the actor, my friend, is sometimes I see he's not have the feeling that he didn't go far enough, or something. It's just a feeling. It's just something uneasy, and just because we have this time on our hands, sometimes I go back to the same scene. I do it again, or sometimes already correcting some things that I thought were not good, but usually the same exact scene, the same text, let's say. And we do it a second time, 3, 4, 6 months after the first one. It's telling you the present moment of that shooting, the moment of the shoot of the narration, which is not the same thing. But doing a second time the first scene normally changes a lot. Normally I use the second time in general because time, again, and I think just time, intervenes, recreates, erases some things in the sense of memory, or memory acts in such a way creatively that the sentimentality, the temperature of that scene changes completely. I have lots of examples. The most spectacular for me was in that film, In Vanda's Womb, where I had a scene that I shot, which was very, very sentimental. To Vanda and a boy talking about a girl, a friend that died, and shot at the moment she died, like half an hour after this death, we shot that as a sort of homage. They were all junkies and they were all suffering and they were all sharing the grief, and I wanted to know what it was like to lose one of their comrades. And the scene was super emotional, super, say, Casavetian. They cried, they embraced, they improvised a lot without, it was very, very free. And it was a little bit, for me, it was a bit, I don't know, I cannot define it. And I think months after, I asked the same to Vanda and the boy, friends, to let's go back to it and do it again. And they were absolutely very surprised, and they were not happy, because they said, "Didn't you like it? What's the problem?" And I don't remember. And I told them, "But how can you not remember the death of your friend? You still remember it." They said, "Yeah, but it will not be the same. Now we're remembering her." And I said, no, but I would like you to do the same thing. I mean, like if she died this morning, talk about her in this moment, in the present, today. And so they did, and we shot, I don't know, like I think 8-9 times, because it's a long shot. It's more than 5 minutes. And it happened that as soon as they started, the words came out the same, almost the same, all of them. It seemed a written text. It seemed a screenplay by Mr. I don't know, Lubitsch. It's word by word. They were exactly doing the same text, but the tone, the tempo, the rhythm, and something there, a feeling, a general feeling, was completely something else. Now they were talking about themselves, and the first time they were talking about this girl that died, it was all about the girl that died, and now they were talking about them and their possible death soon, the relation to death. And the first one was a friend's grief, something a little bit exterior. And this one was completely inside the room. They were talking about their own death, how that could happen right away, tomorrow. Um, it's so much so that it became almost comical, because they, at the one moment, if you see this film I'm talking about, at the moment they are like doctor and patient. I mean, they're two junkies talking about pills and asthma and feeling back pain, and watch out because aspirin is very, very dangerous. It's very strong. And these are guys that were shooting heroin every second. So it's very, very comical, very tragical at the same time. And there was a distance. There was this famous, distance, this detachment that that was created. I don't know, with memory. I think the only by the trick of memory and time passed that gave the scene a very special quality. I don't know. It was colder, of course. There's no tears there. There's almost no feeling for the girl. It's very cold in a way. They say he's died today. Oh yeah, they. It's not that they avoid the thing, but it's like death is there, like it is, as I experienced it in that neighborhood every day. Very, 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 very brutal. And it seems much more, for me, much more true to the place, to the community, to them even, than the first one. The first one, there was maybe because they know that they saw there was a camera, that maybe there was only that supplement of camera of making something, or just making a small show for their departed friend. Maybe that was the reason, but it was a little bit less true than this one. So I don't know if this explains anything about the moment. But yes, it's. I don't know if I can be more respectful of the moment, but the moment has to be. This is. I'm sorry. This will be stupid, maybe, but the moment is more that's than feeling. And I know you make films with feeling, and that it's only about feelings for me. Or again, Mr. Spielberg, the second time we talk about him. But it's feeling. It's feeling. I respect that. I like that. It's with feeling that I work with Vitaline and Van and everybody. It should be like that. We should go towards a profoundness and be truthful to feelings and to emotions. But those feelings and emotions, and they are sociological, they are economical, they are historical, they are anthropological, they are political, of course. So the moment is 1 microsecond of our life is charged with so many stuff, so that when you make a film, which is artificial, it's an artificial thing, it's a construction, you have to take all of this in account. I like that. I like studying the place. I like studying people. I like I said, I like being a reporter, a historian, a filmmaker, everything at the same time. And when Vitaline is If you think sometimes Vitalina is interesting or moving, it's because her history also comes across, not only just a sentimentality. And maybe not only her history, the history of her sisters and brothers, and it goes back. It's everything is charged with a lot of memory and a lot of. Is this too boring? Maybe.
No,
no.
no. We
Because
are
I can
almost
get-
out of time.
I
We
can
are
get-
almost out of time.
Yeah.
And I think we'll have maybe one more question from the audience, if that's okay. Over here.
My question was actually just related to what you were ending on, because I was interested in the quote you said you included in the film that making revolution means reinstating old things, and it's something that I think Straub says at some point. I was wondering kind of how you had taken from that into your own filmmaking, because their own seems to have changed in how they did that, say, compared to some of the earlier films, which are maybe more short takes compared and like are more about contemporary history compared to the like later work. So I'm just curious about that.
Well, the actual the quote is from Walter Benjamin, the philosopher. And he said the revolution would also mean to remember, reinstate very ancient and forgotten things. I think that's more or less the idea, and I think we can all agree on that more and more. Actually, it's going back to the beginning. It's to the beginning of things, to their origins. Trying to, just going back to try to. Let's not say save, but understand how things work, how things were lost a little bit. That's the most. That's the more difficult feeling right now for I think everybody, but I think for a serious filmmaker, at least filmmaker, artist, but filmmaker is this certainty. It's not a feeling. It's not very. This certainty that we're losing precious things every day, every second. And cinema is. We need things to make cinema. We need reality. Cinema is very, at least for me, very close to reality. My screenplay is reality. I don't write. I don't take that many notes unless I'm working with reality. I'm not sure about what you said about evolution or transformation of the work. I changed a lot, but as I told you, I had this moment of doubt because I thought it was artistic and it was not. It was. I had to change the way I worked with the crew, how much I paid. How can we relate? Do we need 40 people to make a certain kind of film? Or can we be 4? It's a way of talking, it's a way of sharing and not losing, not wasting, especially. I'm very concerned with waste as Jean-Marie and Danièle, I think. Waste is no good in film. I think it's you can do the best. I mean, the best with the best intent, the film with the best intentions. But if you're wasting, if you're just wasting things, it's no good. It's not a proper way of working and living. I'm don't know. I'm interested in certain things. I hope these things are interesting. My feeling, my idea is that you can do very serious and even spectacular work in film with the smallest means possible. If the means and the ends are in harmony, that's enough, and it could be very, very rich, and like the first Straub films were, they were a bit more close to the avant-garde maybe, or to experiment. The last ones are a bit more it's a bit more in history and time. But I think if you are, it's a question of being in tune with your subject and not being artificially exterior, I would say don't trust screenplays. No, don't trust them that much, It's a set of rules and laws that just be a little bit more yourself, and it's not an advice. I'm talking to myself. It's just be interested in the world. That's what I'm still very interested in the world, or a certain part of the world. Those 90% or more, they are everywhere. I mean, not only in Africa. It's Asia. It's your country. It's my country. It's the larger part of our humanity, I think, and that's worth filming.
Okay, well, I think we are out of time. We're going to screen Horse Money pretty soon, and I hope that we can continue the conversation after that. But Pedro, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.